In this video, we will talk about Python classes and objects. So as you people might be already knowing that Python is an object-oriented programming language. So everything in Python is basically an object that belongs to a particular class. Let me show you. So here I am printing let's say, let me create 4 variables. Here a numerical variable, then a floating point variable, and then let's say a string variable, and then let's say a Python list. Okay, now let me check the type of each of these variables. Okay, type of A, B, C, and D. Now let me run this program. So you see each of these variables has a different class. So the first variable belongs to class int, the second one to float, the third one to str, that is string, and the fourth one to class list. So basically A, B, C, D are now Python objects that belongs to a particular class. So this is the object that belongs to integer class. So we can say this is an integer type object. Similarly, we can say this is a string type object. Till here in this Python tutorial series, we were only using inbuilt classes, or you can say inbuilt classes and their objects. Now in this video, we will also see how we can create our own classes and own objects. So to create a new Python object, we have to create its class first. Okay, so let me show you how you can create a class in Python. So to create a class, we use the keyword class. Okay, and then we have to specify the name of the class. Let's say my class. Okay, let's say my class, and then we make use of the column sign and then indentation. Okay, similar to if else statements, while loop, for loop. And now here in this class, I can specify my own class properties and objects. Okay, what do I mean by class properties and objects? Let's say here is a string, Gurmeet Singh. As I told you in Python strings video, we can apply some methods over it, like lower to convert into lowercase, upper to convert it into uppercase. So these are the methods that particularly belong to the class string, right? So similar way, we can also create methods and properties for our own custom classes. Okay, so this is a class, let's say my class, and let me define a property name is equal to my custom class. Okay, so here I use the class keyword and then I define the name of the class, then colon symbol, then indentation, and under this block I specified a variable name is equal to my custom class. Now this will be called as a property of my class. Okay, now I can create object of my class. Okay, how we can create object of my class? Let me use the word obj. So like we call a function, here we have to call the class name like this. Okay, no arguments applied, just I have written my class and then parenthesis. Now this variable obj will be the object of my class. So let me show you by printing obj. You see, it's a main.myClass object at this memory address. Okay, we can also check the type of this obj. Okay, let's check the type of obj, and you can see now it says it is main.myClass. So this object belongs to my class. Okay, so we have created our own custom class, my class. It has only one property name that contains a string value, my custom class. So we can access that name property of my class like this. So I'm printing obj.name. Now I'll run it. You can see this text string, my custom class, is now printed. So here I am creating a class to perform some mathematical operations. So I write class simple math and then this colon symbol, and then here I am making use of init function. So here I have to, in the body of this class, I define another function. Here I am using 2 underscore symbols, underscore, underscore, and then init, and then again underscore, underscore. Okay. So now under this function, under the class, I have defined a function underscore underscore init underscore underscore and then parenthesis. Okay, so this name has to be exactly this. Okay, you can't use just any other name to initialize a class object. Okay, that's why here we have to make use of this keyword only. And here inside this, I'm printing I'm the object of simple math class. Okay, now whenever a new object of this simple math class will be created, this particular function will execute. And always remember that there is a parameter that we always have to define within this init function, that is self. You can use any name here. I'm just using self because this is a common terminology in Python. This is similar to this keyword in most of the other programming languages, but let's say just for now, let's say it is self. Okay, you always have to specify this thing within the init method. Okay, now let me just create two Python objects that belongs to this class. Okay, so here simple math and then again object to simple math. Now let me run this program. So you see, it is written two times. I am the object of simple math class and I am the object of simple math class. So now whenever we are creating a new object of this particular custom class, this function executes and whatever the code is there inside its body, it is executed. Okay, that's why we are saying here written two times, I am the object of simple math class. Okay, now if you will not specify self here, it will raise an error. You see, it says init takes 0 positional arguments, but 1 was given. Okay, so here we have not defined any positional arguments, but 1 was given. So the Python compiler always provide one positional argument, that is self, to the init method implicitly. So we are not passing any argument here explicitly, right? It is implicitly providing the self argument to this init function. And let's see what is there in the self. Okay, let me just print it here. You see, it is simple math object. So this object is itself passed as the argument to this init method. We'll see the exact uses of this self later on in this video. And now you can also pass arguments here while creating objects. Okay, so let me just pass two arguments here, 10 and 20. So I have created this simple math class to perform simple operations like addition, subtraction, multiplication and division on two different numbers. And I am initializing this whenever I am creating the object. So simple math 10, 20. Here I also have to define this like number 1 and number 2. Always again remember that the first argument, okay, the first argument of any method, okay, any method, this is just init method now. If even we will create more methods under this class, the first argument is always self. Okay, that is the object that is used to refer to the object of this particular class itself. Okay, so this is self and then number 1 and number 2. Now this 10 will go to number 1 and this 20 will go to number 2. Okay, let me just print it. Print number 1 comma number 2. Okay, now whenever the object of this class will be created, this will also be printed. Okay, let's run it. You see, I am the object of simple math class and 10, 20. So this 10 is passed to number 1 and this 20 is passed to number 2. So I have defined this init function, right? Now let me also define two properties, that is number 1 here as well. And let me define a default value to it, 10, and again number 2, 10. Okay, let me just define a default value to it. So these two are integer values. And now here I am using self, to refer to number 1. So self dot number 1 refers to this. Okay, this self dot number 1 refers to this. Okay, let me just show you by printing. Okay, this number 1 is different, self dot number 1 is different. Okay, let me just print everything. So to have a better clarity, self dot number 1, then print self dot number 2. Okay, let me just give a different value to this one and also this one different values. number 1 and then print number 2. Okay, now I'll run this. Okay, you see self dot number 1 gives this value, that is 20, and then self dot number 2 gives this value, that is 10. Number 1 gives this value 30 because it is passed as an argument here. Okay, and number 2 gives this value 40. Okay, so I think this example is enough to help you understand better how the things are working here. Always remember that self is used to refer to the items of the current class. Okay, so you can use here within the function self to refer to this number 1 and number 2 properties. Okay, I am passing the numbers that on which I want to perform the operations here, right? So these are the numbers that I want to assign to this. Okay, let me show you how. So I can assign like this. So self dot number 1 equals number 1. Okay, now this value 30 will be assigned to this number 1. Okay, this which is originally 20. And similarly self dot number 2 is equal to number 2. So this value 40 is now assigned to this number 2. Okay, so now whenever you will check the object properties number 1 and the object property number 2, you will find the new values there, not the old one. Okay, number 2. Okay, now let me just run this one. So you see 30 and 40 because we have passed 30 and 40 there, and these values are now assigned to the original properties number 1 and number 2, which were originally 20 and 10. Okay, similarly if I create a new object of the same class, here I am passing values like 12 and 42, and here obj2, now you see first for the first object the values are 30, 40. For the second object it is 12 and 42 because here we have passed 12 and 42, and that is being passed to this init function, and this init function is further assigning these values to the original properties number 1 and number 2. Now I can easily make use of this thing to perform the operations. So let's say I want to perform add operation. I create a new method add, def add. As I told, you always have to specify self. What I mean is you always have to specify one argument, one positional argument, and you can name it anything, self, this, whatever. Okay, let me just name it this time. Okay, I name it this. Now I just say return, or I can simply print, okay, instead of returning, so that I need not to use print statement here afterwards. I'm just printing print this dot number 1, okay, to refer to this, because here I have used this. If I have used self here, I can write self here. Okay, number 1 plus this dot number 2. Okay, now what can I do is I can simply use object1 dot add. Okay, I need not to pass any arguments here because this is the self provided argument. Okay, now run it. You see 70 is printed because that is the sum of 30 and 40. Let's say I write 45 here, and you see the change, it is 75 now. So we have performed the add operation this way, and similarly I can also perform the other mathematical operations like multiply and division. Let me perform add, subtract, multiply, and then divide. What I need to change here is the operators, this one to minus, this one to multiply, and this one to divide. That's it. I can perform operations like object1 dot subtract, object1 dot multiply, and object1 dot divide. Okay, let's run it. You see the different values: 75 minus 15, 1350, then 0.666. So this way we have created our own Python custom class that performs, that first initialize the values to the properties, these properties, and then we make use of methods to perform a number of operations: add, subtract, multiply, and divide. So here I am just defining a random function. Let's say add random, and what this function does, let me just provide self here only, and what it function does, this function also takes another argument, that is another number. Let's say I'm just creating a random function just to explain you that the methods can also have any number of arguments. Okay, another number, and Here what I'm doing is I'm just printing this dot number 1 plus this dot number 2 and plus the another number that the user passes as the argument. Okay. Now here I'm calling this method using the object, and let's say here I'm passing this number as 57.5. Okay. Now let's run it. Okay, so here I'm using this, and here I've defined self. So here I can define self. Now I run this one, and you see 132.65. So it first add the two numbers, that is 75, and then further add a 57.5 that I have passed here as an argument. So this is how you can create your own custom Python class. You can define properties inside it, you can define methods inside it. I have also explained the usage of self. Okay. And let's say you just want to create a class for now and do not want to define anything inside it. Again, you can use pass keyword here. So it will be a valid class. It will be a valid class. I can create object of this class like this simple math. It will be a valid object, but the class will not contain anything. So that's all about Python classes and objects.